I never planned to hijack a centuries-old portrait from the bowels of a bankrupt museum, yet on a wind-gutted February night I found myself in the basement of the Grayson Institute, lace gloves soaked with cleaning solvent, silently carving the canvas free of its warped stretcher while the security guard upstairs debated hockey scores on his phone. 15 hours earlier I'd been convinced my greatest crisis was an overdue rent notice pinned to my studio door, but then the telegram arrived, yes. An actual Western Union stock form in an era of emoji and red receipts, bearing 6 words that detonated my life: "Your father isn't dead, trust the painting." My father, Victor Aldridge, had supposedly perished in a yacht explosion when I was 10, a tragedy that shoved my mother into a decade of opioids and left me raising myself among the dust motes of art school dormitories. So reading those 6 words felt like being pulled back through time by the collar, gasping old salt air. The telegram bore no signature, only a set of coordinates that dropped into the Labrador Sea and a single title, Lady in Vermilion/1792. That painting hung in Grayson's storage, an unfinished Gainsborough copy scholars dismissed as sentimental fluff, yet something about its subject, a red-gowned woman whose eyes gleamed with conspiratorial sadness, had haunted me since childhood field trips. I spent the afternoon forging a conservation work order, walked through the Institute staff entrance like I still belonged, and by dusk the painting was mine, rolled in archival tissue and tucked into a courier tube that thudded against my ribs as I hustled across an ice-slicked parking lot toward my rusted Subaru. I made it 1 block before headlights flared behind, swallowing me in blue light strobes. Private security, not police, their SUV grille taller than my hatchback. The guard I'd overheard on the phone stepped out, face waxy with panic. I slammed the stick into reverse, fishtailed, then gunned north, heart battering like a snare drum. 7 blocks of potholed asphalt later I ditched onto the river road and killed my lights. Pale moon spilt across black water, revealing the skeletal trusses of the old rail bridge, a shortcut if you didn't value tires or survival. I didn't either. Tires screamed as I bounced onto the groaning planks, security SUV fishtailing behind, its high beams exposing cracks wide enough to swallow axles. Halfway across, I cut the wheel, braked hard, the courier tube slid forward and slammed the dash. Behind me the SUV tried the same but momentum and rotted timber betrayed him. Wood snapped, the vehicle toppled front first through the slats, hanging like a gutted shark before crashing into icy water. I pulled around debris, reached the far shore, and drove into the industrial maze until city lights vanished behind rusted silos. Only then did I breathe. At a 24-hour truck stop I unrolled the canvas across the vinyl booth, heart still banging. Under fluorescence the brushwork looked amateur, muddy pinks and sagging anatomy. All wrong for Gainsborough, but as I swabbed solvent across a corner the vermilion layer lifted like stage makeup, revealing ultramarine silk beneath, then a glint of gold leaf, a hidden miniature portrait of my father, unmistakable even 30 years younger, dressed in naval whites, gazing back knowingly. I choked on a laugh sob, startling the waitress who topped my coffee with eyes that had seen worse at 3 a. Beneath my father's image a faint scrawl emerged, Nora, start where we ended. Laskin Cove. Laskin was the Newfoundland village where the yacht exploded. We never recovered a body. I called the only person reckless enough to follow me into a conspiracy, Marisol Vega, investigative podcaster, former roommate, champion of lost causes. She answered on the first half ring. I felt the universe ping. What trouble are we chasing? 28 minutes later she screeched into the lot in her dented van stenciled with decals for every indie radio award imaginable. By dawn we were barreling up the Trans-Canada in slanting snow, the stolen canvas braced in the back like a sleeping passenger. Somewhere near Quebec City I told her everything. Instead of calling me insane she grinned and hit record on her field mic. If we die, she said, someone should edit the last episode. I didn't die, but I came close 2 days later when we reached Laskin's fog-smothered harbor and found the marina burned to concrete stumps, still smelling of kerosene even after 30 years, because someone had torched it again 3 nights prior, according to the lone witness, a deaf fisherman named Jonah who communicated by angry gestures until Marisol scribbled questions on a notepad. He drew 3 symbols, a nautilus shell, a chess knight, and a weather vane. My pulse jolted. The nautilus had sealed the telegram coordinates. The chess knight adorned the family signet Mom kept locked in her jewelry box. The vane looked like the wrought iron rooster on the old coastal lighthouse 10 miles north. We followed gravel switchbacks until the lighthouse emerged, spine white against slate sea, its lens shattered, lantern dark since 1991. Inside, drifted sand-coated spiral stairs. In the keeper's quarters Marisol pried up a floorboard and uncovered a rusted strongbox etched with the chess knight crest. No key. Then I remembered the pocket watch pendant I'd worn since childhood, a birthday gift from friends of your father, Mom had claimed. I twisted the stem and it clicked like a key, the lock plate yielded. Inside lay 3 objects, a silver USB drive, a plastic ID badge for a company called Kestrel Dynamics, and a Polaroid of my father standing beside a woman in Navy intelligence uniform, my mother. The timestamp, June 1990, 5 months before the yacht fire. My stomach flipped. Mom had always called Dad a dreamer, nothing about covert ops. We plugged the USB into Marisol's laptop, an encrypted file demanded passphrase. I tried childhood, Victor, Gullwing, nothing. Marisol suggested the Nautilus ratio 1:618, still nothing. But then I remembered the watch director at Grayson once said Gainsborough hid signatures in Fibonacci spirals. I typed golden ratio. The file decrypted into grainy footage dated 1990, my father addressing a briefing room of defense officials, blueprint of an underwater drone projected behind him labeled Project Vermilion. The drone was designed to intercept fiber optic cables, siphon data without detection, a weapon attractive to both Navy intel and private mercenaries. In the video Dad said, if this tech falls into corporate hands the Atlantic will turn into a glass grave. Next frame cut to my mother stepping forward, applauding. She was part of the team. Marisol's fingers flew across keys pulling metadata. The drone's prototype was scheduled for sea trials the night the yacht exploded, meaning the boat fire was sabotage, likely staged to erase the project and its lead engineer. My father hadn't died, he'd gone underground. But why the telegram now? And why instruct me to steal a decoy painting? As snow thickened, we bunked in the keeper's quarters using our coats as blankets. Around 3 beams of headlights swept across broken window glass. Marisol cursed under breath, grabbed her Zoom recorder like a weapon. Figures in hazard yellow parkas trudged through snow, brandishing rifles. On instinct I wedged the painting into the stairwell and kicked the easel hinge. Canvas slid down to the rocks below. Gunshots shattered glass. We bolted down spiral stairs to the service door but 2 armed men blocked exit. Jonah the fisherman appeared behind them swinging an oar like Thor. He cracked one skull, shoulder-checked the other. Bullets ricocheted but missed. Marisol and I tore past, grabbing Jonah's sleeve. We scrambled across slippery boulders to where the canvas lay draped over driftwood like Lazarus Rising. Jonah signed 2 urgent words, Rooster, Cave. He led us along the cliff until we reached an overhang hidden behind sea spray. Inside, bioluminescent algae shimmered turquoise, revealing a steel lab door recessed into granite. The chess-crest adorned its keypad. My watch key fit and the door side open into a humidity-rich tunnel humming with diesel generators. At its terminus a drydock cradle held a sleek crimson torpedo, the Vermilion drone, intact, haloed by LED work lights. I felt Dad's presence the way a diver feels pressure hours before the bends. A voice echoed, Nora, careful of the prop wash. I spun. There he was, aged but unmistakable, salt and pepper beard, eyes lit like ship lanterns. My knees buckled, he steadied me. Tears blurred everything. He said there was no time. Corporate contractors hired by Kestrel Dynamics had tracked him for years, found the Lighthouse days ago, torched the marina to flesh out clues, and would return in force once they realized shooting us failed. He'd sent the watch painting because he knew the Institute's storage was unwatched at shift change and that I alone would notice brush anomalies. He turned to Marisol with a ghost of a smile. I enjoy your podcast, keeps me sane, she squeaked. Dad explained Mom's part. She'd stayed inside Kestrel as double agent until her conscience collapsed. She informed him contractors planned to hijack Vermilion and sell cable data retail to any regime. They faked his death. The burned yacht was an empty decoy. But Kestrel discovered inconsistencies, put a tail on Mom, kept her under silent coercion by paying her firm's debts. Grandpa had been complicit in forging documents, but age brought regret and he reached out the only way he trusted, through art and hidden ratios. We had 12 hours before a private security force arrived by sea to reclaim the drone. Plan: pilot Vermilion 3 miles offshore to intercept a cable marker where Navy allies would retrieve it at dawn. But the dock cradle needed manual release while the prop warmed, requiring 3 operators. Jonah volunteered with stoic nod. Marisol refused to stay behind, muttering content this good can't be missed. We prepped the cradle. Outside cave-mouth footsteps crunched, flashbang grenades rolled in, deafening white. My ears rang but I dropped behind the drone hull, felt bullets ping steel. Dad slapped the release. Vermilion lunged into the water canal. We dove through the hatch behind it as seawater surged, slamming the outer door. Inside cramped cockpit Dad throttled up. Through periscope I saw muzzle flashes on cliff. We submerged. Depth gauges glowed eerie green. Dad handed me a headset. Navigate by this cable map. Touch the wrong bundle and Russia here's your Spotify. I barked vectors, water keened against hull. Marisol recorded a breathless narrative for her audience of millions who might never hear it. Jonah manned ballast though I suspected he'd never touched a computer. 40 minutes in, sonar pinged pursuit craft dropping mini-subs. Kestrel would board us if we breached. Dad armed an EMP pulse rig to disable chasers, but it risked frying our own guidance. He counted down, the cockpit crackled, lights strobed, then dark. Emergency battery glowed red. Subs vanished from sonar. We drifted blind, current shoving us into cable forest. I rerouted battery, regained thrusters. At 4:23 we surfaced near the rendezvous buoy. A Navy destroyer loomed out of dawn fog, choppers thwacking overhead. Signal flares shot skyward. Rescue teams winched the drone onto a barge, then escorted us aboard. Safe? Almost. As sun-gilded waves, Kestrel's contracted speedboats pierced horizon, guns blazing. The destroyer returned fire, shredding fiberglass hulls. One boat rammed the drone barge, detonation rocking sea. Dad screamed, the research in flames. Yet the barge crew tossed a waterproof case onto the destroyer deck, the drone's data cores intact. Navy whisked us below for debrief. Classified. Weeks later congressional hearings toppled Kestrel Dynamics. Mom testified via closed session, granted immunity for whistleblowing. Grandpa's obituary hailed him hero. Marisol's podcast cracked watch shattered download records though half the details remained redacted. The final episode ends with my father's voice saying, "Time's value isn't how long it runs but how deeply it remembers." The stolen painting hung briefly in my studio before the Institute negotiated its quiet return. They never pressed charges. Someone anonymous donated funding for a new conservation wing named after Jonah. The lighthouse stands empty again, but whenever storms roll in, the beacon flickers. Some say faulty wiring, some swear it's my father running diagnostics. Me, I keep the cracked watch on a chain above my drafting table. When it ticks, I know he's alive somewhere calibrating truth. And when it falls silent, I wind it, press the stem key, and listen as history's gears bite once more, promising that even the darkest varnish can be lifted if you're willing to dissolve the lies one solvent-soaked stroke at a time.